Okay, well, let's start to see this in action. I'm not going to type it in on ChatGPT. I'm just going to walk through the scenario that I've used and how I've used ChatGPT Advanced Data Analysis tool to help me form the story. So this is all about this idea that storytelling requires me to form an idea, a story to tell. And to do that, I need to look at the data, as mentioned, and how might I do this as a non-technical, I'm not a statistician, that sort of scenario there. So, as I mentioned, one of the great tools we can use is generative AI. I'm using the ChatGPT 4 with the Advanced Data Analysis tool enabled. So what do? I upload. First, I need to upload my file. Super easy. I will click on here that says attach files. It would then open up my files, and then I would upload the one that I wish to load. Then I kind of warm it up, but more importantly, I get a sense of what's happening in that file set. So as I'm going to go through this, you'll see sort of pattern emerge, and the pattern is describe what's happening, then try to analyze or identify if what's happening is important. Or did it happen by chance, or is there something behind it? And that's that story forming piece. Oh, being inquisitive. Oh, that's interesting. That's the general pattern, but is there a relationship between that, or could that be causing that, or could I just put the two together and see what the pattern looks like? So what I've asked it to do is type in things like, what are the column headings? Really simple. Just looks at the CS3 file and returns all of the column headings. If each ID represents a response, how many responses are there? Really plain English way, simple way of typing in basically how many have I got in my survey? 40. How many responses are there by department? I get my department breakdown. Again, how many responses are they by year of study? And I get my year of study breakdown. And then I start to combine it. Well, what's the response pattern by year of study and department? And I get that breakdown there, and it starts to give me some narrative as well about how I can read the table or how I can interpret the data. And I can start to think, well, that might be useful background information as I'm story forming. This might be really useful background information for some visual to give a sense of the reader of the research poster. This is my sort of profile of my respondents. Now, one of the questions we had on in the survey, and the responses we got, was to what extent does the person agree or disagree with a statement? And the statement was about the impact of the learning analytics on their learning outcomes and learning experiences. And it was either strongly agree, disagree, strongly disagree. So let's start to explore that space. So again, describe, what have I got? This is the response pattern. And then start to think about it. Well, are there departments that is more positive with the statement than others? And then we look at it, and again, based on the data, we could just say that computer science has 8 responses that are positive, and the others have 7 or 6. Okay, so how about it by year of study? And what happens if I try and combine the two? So year of study and by department. And it goes off and it starts to trundle through. And this time it gives me some textual summary information, not a chart. It just starts to say, well, computer science first year, second year, third year, and I can start to see that, third years mostly strongly disagree in computer science. They mostly strongly disagree in geography, and we have mixed opinions in history. So I can start to look at some analysis by year of study and department. And then I really want to understand, well, is that happening by chance? And I know there's this concept called a statistical significant relationship. So can I say that a geography student is more likely to be positive to that question than a history student? Now I'd say, let's do it on assumption I don't know how to calculate a chi-squared. I leave it, it goes off and it does all the work for me. It identifies that the chi-squared is the best test. It then gives me the value. It gives me the key thing I want to know, which is 0.77, and that's way bigger than that. But what does that mean to the sort of layman? Basically, no statistically significant relationship. So it could have happened by chance. Brilliant. I've closed that door down. If it came up that there's really strong statistical relationship, I might think story forming. That's kind of interesting. That might be a point I need to bring into my research paper, that there is definitely a stronger statistical relationship between a geographer agreeing with it and than a historian. I just then repeat it because it's so simple to do. You repeat it, but this time look at the relationship of a geographer to a computer science student, or repeat it for computer science to a history. For all of those, they all came up with the same outcome. There's no statistical significant relationship. Next one I want to look at is this idea of the summary of to what extent. So they were asked on the survey to put a word in that would summarize their feelings about the use of learning analytics by the university to monitor and enhance their learning experience. And they had to select one word that summed that up. And what we then did, or what the analysis did, was then to identify if that word tended to be positive or negative. So out of the 40 responses, we see that generally it's split. It's saying it's split, so I'm going to explore it a little bit further. Is there any pattern or discernible pattern between computer science students or geographers or historians? And again, not really, but again, it might be a really nice visual to bring in to as I start to form a data story together. I could potentially bring that in. Could we do a chi-squared to see if there's a relationship? And again, not really coming through there. So that's absolutely fine. Repeat it, but for year of study, not for department. So simple to do. This is why it's so great to help us form this story. I'm asking the same question, looking at a different aspect, and within seconds or a minute or so, it's doing the calculations for me. I'm not having to go back and recalculating these in Excel, finding the time to do that. I'm just asking really simple questions to a data set that I've uploaded. The final space that I really wanted to look at as well is this idea of a word cloud. In fact, I call it a word map, but it's a word cloud, and beautifully, very intuitively and very smartly, it works out. I've used the wrong term at the start and it provides it. So what would be a word map or cloud of the responses, and it creates one for me. And as we know, the larger the word, the more times that word's come up in the data set. Great. Now can we have a look at it by department? Because that might be one. I might have the overall aggregates forming. If I look at this, I can see supportive comes up. Intrusive comes up. Privacy concerns are very important in terms of their size within it as well. So let's break that down by department. Is there anything that's clear there? Are there certain terms that come up more than others? Difficult to interpret. So I've just asked it to do it into a 2-color scheme, and it said it's done it for me. It says red is negative, green is positive, and I can start to see that impersonal is mentioned much more in computer science than it is in the other departments. While we have a much higher concern for privacy concerns in history than we do in geography, it's referenced more times. It's a bigger word or within the word cloud. So that's great. So I've already started to think, okay, this is useful. There's some stories that I might be able to tell here as I've just walked through this analysis. All I wanted to do, show how the use of something like generative AI system like ChatGPT with the data analysis tool enabled on the ChatGPT 4 will let you start to think about how you explore the story forming aspect. So I can't tell a story of my data till I form that story from my data, and that lets me do it really quickly in a way that I do not need to be a statistician or a data analyst to do. I just need to know some general things about the concept that, is it significant? Is this relationship important? Does this happen by chance? plot me things, show me things, describe things, analyze things. Hope you enjoyed it.